Good to see you, Mary. How you doing?
It's great to see you. I am so happy to be here talking about one of my favorite things today.
I know you are, and you and I had a discussion about this just a few weeks back, so we're just glad that you're here. So let's talk about bird watching, because you did tell me during that conversation that bird watching is becoming wildly popular.
It is. Bird watching is one of the fastest growing hobbies in the United States. And you can bird anywhere.
Cool.
I think a lot of people experienced that over the last couple of years, birding from your own house, in your backyard, or areas in your neighborhood or in your community. So you can bird anywhere. And it's a hobby that anybody can do.
Nice.
I always say really the only thing you need is a little bit of patience and practice.
All right.
And then it is a lifelong hobby that you can enjoy just about anywhere.
Okay. So tell us, how do people get started with bird watching?
People get started a lot of different ways. One of the easiest ways that people can get started into birding and observing birds is putting up bird feeders in their own yard. And the one thing I recommend to people putting up bird feeders is put up a quality bird feeder. So you don't want to put like a piece of plastic one up there that the squirrels are going to get into. So get something that's going to last for a while.
Okay.
And the second thing I recommend is invest in a quality seed. So sometimes when you buy the mixes at like a big box store, they have a lot of filler or waste seed that the birds aren't even eating. They're kicking it out, and that's how you get weeds coming up under your bird feeders.
Exactly.
So if you stick to something like a black oil sunflower seed or safflower and suet, those are not only going to prevent the weeds and get you more bang for your buck, but they're also going to be attracting a bigger diversity of birds coming to those bird feeders.
Okay.
So setting up bird feeders is one easy way to start observing birds. Exploring in your community, taking a walk around your neighborhood, visiting your local nature center.
Yes.
Or green space.
Parks.
Yeah,
Sure.
parks are a great way to get out there and just look and listen and engage with nature.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I can tell you like this so far. All right. So what equipment is needed to start? I know you covered some of those. Are there any other pieces of equipment that we need?
Yeah. So really, you don't need anything, but if you really want to take your birding to the next level, you want to invest in just a few things.
Okay.
The first piece of equipment is going to be a pair of binoculars. And binoculars can be intimidating for people, right? Because
Yes.
not only is it a new piece of equipment you have to learn how to use, but there's so many options out there. So for birding, we recommend looking at a pair that's either an 8x42 or an 8x32. So what do those numbers mean,
Yeah,
right?
I say, so what do they mean? Right.
And you'll find those numbers on every pair of binocular.
Okay.
So the first number is the magnification.
Okay.
So when you're looking through your binoculars, for example, these are an 8. When you're looking through your binoculars, what you see is magnified 8 times.
Okay.
If you have a 10, it's magnified 10 times. Okay? So that's the first number.
Okay, got it.
For birding, you don't want to get too high, because then the binoculars, your field of view or what you're seeing is pretty small. So really for birding, you want to stick somewhere between a 6 and a 10.
Okay.
You don't want to get too high above that. The second number has to do with the objective lens here, and it is the distance of the objective lens. Okay, so what does that mean?
Help us.
Yeah, so that is basically how much light is allowed into your binoculars. So if you have a bigger diameter, it's going to allow more light in, but it's also going to make your binoculars really heavy. Okay. So when you're looking at something, you'll get a little wobble or shake in it. So really for the second number, you want to look at something between like a 30 and a 45.
Okay.
So those are kind of what those numbers mean. Other than that, you want to try and test out a couple pairs, and this is going to impress you, this big fancy word.
I'm already impressed.
Okay?
Yeah, just learning,
One of the issues that people have with binoculars is their interpupillary distance, right? So it's just a big fancy word for saying the distance in between your eyes.
Okay.
So everybody's eyes are set a little bit closer or further apart.
How about that?
And so with binoculars, you want to find one that's going to meet your interpupillary distance. And so that's basically how close they come to each other or how far apart. So you really want to test a few pairs if you can to find that right interpupillary distance.
How about that? That's your bird watching term for today.
Yeah,
How about that?
yeah. I mean, you can use that word and totally impress your friends.
I think I will.
Yeah. So binoculars is the first kind of piece of equipment
Okay.
that most people want to start with. The second one is going to be a field guide.
Yeah.
And field guides, there are field guides for just about everything out there, plants, different animals, stars. And so a field guide is a book that's going to help identify things that you're seeing in the field or outside in nature.
Okay.
So you want to invest in a field guide. There are so many different field guides out there.
Sure.
And so I have a few recommendations.
Okay.
So in field guides, they either are going to have drawings like this one, or they're going to have photographs. Okay. So what I recommend is I prefer the drawings because a photograph is just a snapshot of one bird at one time of the year. And birds change color throughout the year. As they age, they can vary in color. So the drawings give you kind of an overview.
Okay.
The second thing you want to look for in a field guide is what area does it cover. So there are field guides that are broken down by state. And like we were talking about, birds don't see state lines. So unless you're just really interested in that particular one, I would try to get either an Eastern guide for Eastern North America or a Western guide for Western North America. Or if you tend to travel or just want to see what other birds are out there, I recommend one that covers all of North America.
Nice. Okay.
So field guides, binoculars, and then the last thing is how are you going to keep track of what birds you're seeing? For some people that's not important, for other people it is. So there are checklists, and those are done usually by state, or if you visit a wildlife refuge or a nature center, sometimes they have field or checklists just for that site. And then also some counties and states will do what's called a seasonal occurrence, and that's telling you what birds are in that area during what time of year.
Nice. Nice.
And then we'll talk a little bit too about if you don't want to take the paper form, there's definitely technology has grown so much. There are ways to do that on an app or on a desktop computer as well.
Okay. So let's talk about some of those apps.
Okay, sure. So one of my favorites to use, when I started birding, I was taking these checklists out with me all the time, but now I record everything on an app called eBird. So just the letter E and the word bird.
Okay.
And that's an app through the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, the leading premier research scientist in ornithology. And it's free to use, and you can record what you're seeing. It records what time you start, the distance you travel, and then of course the birds that you're seeing when you mark them off on your list. What's great about that is not only that you can record what you're seeing, but say I'm going to travel to Pennsylvania and I want to see what birds were seen last week before I get there. And I can go up and I can look, and there's eBird checklists from all across the country and all across the world. So if you're traveling, you can see what birds are in the area during that time too.
That's pretty nice. Okay.
Yeah, it's a really cool one. The other one I recommend for people getting started birding is there is an app that's called Merlin. And it's going to help you identify the birds. And so it goes through kind of a process, which is a process that we teach on how to identify birds. This app does it for you. And it will give you kind of a list of what the possible birds that you're seeing are. The other really cool thing that just came out in that app is you can take a little recording of sound.
How about that?
I know, and it helps to identify what bird sounds you're hearing as well. So it's amazing. These things were not out when I started birding, but they've just taken birding to the next level.
That is next level.
Yeah, it's like now we're all one like world community, all putting in our checklist and seeing what birds are out there.
All right. I can see why it's popular now.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty good. All right, so you were talking about the binoculars earlier. So what about the scope?
Oh, right. So when you get into birding and you kind of want to take it to the next level, and you want to, especially with things that are kind of far off, like ducks that could be far across a lake or a pond, a spotting scope is going to help you see those birds.
Spotting scope.
Spotting scope,
gotcha.
yeah. So when we talked about the binoculars, we talked about, keeping it between like a 6 and a 10, and that's partly because of the weight. Well, sometimes birds are way further away. So with the spotting scope, you're not going to be walking through the field, trying to hold it up to your eye. You need a tripod, but it will do a magnification. This one is anywhere from 20 to 60. So you're going to get a much larger magnification, but it's not as mobile. So it has its limitations as well. And then the cost is getting up there a little bit more too. So it's one of those things like when you decide that birding is going to be a lifelong hobby, this is something that you can start to invest
good investment.
in.
Good deal. Okay. Now let's talk about local organizations.
Yeah. So So here in Memphis, we have a great local organization called the Memphis chapter of the Tennessee Ornithological Society. And across the country, there are local bird chapters.
Okay.
Sometimes they're associated with ornithological societies, sometimes they're associated with the Audubon Society, but there are bird groups all across the country, and all people have to do is kind of look up where their birding organization meets. Usually they have monthly meetings talking about different topics, and one of the best things they do is they lead field trips to some of the hot birding spots in that area. And you can connect with some of your neighbors and some folks in your community on that also enjoy birds.
How about that?
Yeah.
Man, we thank you so much for that good information about bird watching. Yeah, we can tell
Absolutely.
you're really into it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things, so I was more than happy to come on and talk about it.
Well, we thank you much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. To find out more information on this topic, just click on the familyplotgarden.com link in the description.